Brought to you by Hallow, the world's #1 prayer app. In a culture obsessed with categorizing, labeling, and telling people what they can or can't do based on some sort of status, right? They have a snapshot of diagnostics. They experienced some trauma growing up. They've been through some hard challenges. Or maybe it's that nowadays it's fun to even beat up those who have been, quote unquote, successful, right? Like, you've got a high net worth, so you have no problems. Quit whining about anything, right? Your whole...
And you don't care about anybody.
No, you don't care about anybody. You hate people just because you have money. Your whole career has been tell me if I'm wrong, is almost the opposite of much of the what I call the mental health cultural zeitgeist, which is there's something wrong with you. We're going to pat you on the head, go and sit in the corner, and we'll advocate for you. You've been teaching people how to advocate and empower themselves forever. So how do you teach somebody who's trying to build a small family, an entrepreneur just starting out? I've got elderly parents now who are beginning to be reflective over their life. Like, did we have any value here? How do you teach somebody how to develop a path forward in spite of not just park it and call it because I've got some label attached to me?
I think the most important thing is to get rid of the labels, because labels become the story. And once you have a story, you live the narrative, right? So the most powerful force that can change anybody's life is the change of identity. What is identity? We all have a way of defining ourselves. And the problem is we probably defined it a long time ago. If someone says, oh, I can't do that, I'm not one of those, what they're really saying is that doesn't match my identity. But when did you come up with your definition of yourself? And the power of identity is so powerful. Like, if you, for example, let's say, have a big goal and you start to go for it, in the last minute you get fearful and you put it off, you procrastinate. And then you go for it again, and in the last minute you get fearful and procrastinate. You do that 4 or 5 times. After a while, you don't want to feel bad about yourself, so you develop an identity. I'm a procrastinator. And now, by the way, you won't be disappointed. You'll do it on a regular basis. You won't achieve your dreams, but you'll be comfortable. You follow me?
Absolutely.
Or another example might be, because of your background, John, as a doc, is like, okay, a person is clinically depressed. Do you think a clinically depressed person ever has happy moments? What would you say? Yes or no?
Of course they do.
Of course they do. But if you catch them when they go, I'm not really happy, it just looked like I was happy.
Right.
Because our need to stay consistent with our definition is so high. When someone's having an identity crisis, right? Somebody says they're going through that. They're questioning everything. They don't know who they are, what they're about, what they really want. So we come up with a definition of ourselves, and it starts to control who we are. If you go to somebody that's used to smoke cigarettes and they don't smoke anymore, and they haven't smoked in 10 years, and you walk up and say, would you like a cigarette? We're not going to say, what brand is it? They're going to say, oh, I'm not one of those. I'm not a smoker. I'm not one of those. That's not my identity. That's how powerful identity is. It works on both sides, though. Let's say, metaphorically, you set a thermostat at 68 degrees. That's the temperature we want. That's your comfort zone. Not your goals, not your absolute ideals, but what you're used to. So imagine 68 degrees as a metaphor for how much money you're comfortable with having. You want more, but that's what you're used to. Or 68 degrees is how much intimacy, how close you are to people, or your connection with God. It's a measure. Not what you want, it's what you're used to. Well, if all of a sudden things aren't as good as they should be, the 68 degrees drops down to 60. I'm sure you've experienced this in your life. I know I have in mine. Most people have. Suddenly something happens. Your brain goes, hey, you're supposed to be up here. You're down here. And you get this push. The heaters kick on to bring the temperature up again. You feel this push to get yourself back to where you want to be. Most people listening have had that experience, but they don't realize it happens on the other side too. If you get momentum, you start to do some great things. I don't know if you've ever done this, Sean, in your life, and you start doing really well, like better than you expect. And you go from 68, metaphorically, to 75, to 78, to 80. You get about 90 degrees, and all of a sudden your brain goes, hey, what the hell are you doing up here? You're a 68 degreer. And then all of a sudden the heaters stop. You lose your drive. And if that's not, the air conditioners come on, you start to self-sabotage to get back to where you think you need to be. So my life has really been about showing people lasting change only happens when there's an identity change. When it's no longer a fight in you to try to do something. It's like, this is who I am. So there's 2 types of motivations, I'm sure you know, push and pull. Push is I'm trying to make it happen. I got a lot of willpower, and obviously you do too, John, but there's only so much willpower. Willpower will never last long term. What lasts is pull. something that you want more than who you are, something that you care about more than yourself. That's what everyone needs. If you can find something like that you're going for, then your identity will expand. I mean, I'll tell you how I changed my identity. One version of it, I had 4 different fathers growing up. My mom was an interesting character. She's quite a handful. And all my fathers were broke, and we always had pain and no money for food sometimes. But I remember specifically, there was a Christmas time, she kicked out my 4th father, and I really loved him. And then she thought I was on his side. So at Christmas, she kicked me out of the house. And she kept my 1960 Volkswagen and earned $40 a week as a janitor. And I was in high school, still traveling to this place in Pasadena about, if I was driving there about 40 minutes away each way and working all night in the middle of the night, finishing at 2 a.m, coming back, sleeping on 5 hours sleep and getting up and going to school. Well, one day I finished cleaning. Oh, she keeps my car. So now I'm taking buses. So now it's not a 45-minute process. It's 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours each way. But I get to get paid for results. If I could do 2 banks and I did a great job, it wasn't by the hour, so I could make enough money to support myself and come home. I come out to catch the bus at 2 a.m, no bus. 2:15, no bus. 2:30, no bus. Around 2:35 or somewhere in that range, a car pulls up, rolls his window down, and goes, "Hey, buddy, didn't you see there's a bus strike? There's no buses." And he drives off, and I'm like, I have no one to call. I don't have any way to do this, and I'm 17 miles from home. And I'm like, that's the straightest arrow to get home. What the hell am I going to do? And I literally, John, true story, ran. I never run 3 miles. I ran 16 miles. Last mile I walked, but 16 straight miles. And how did I do it? I literally conditioned my brain, and that day changed my identity. It started with anger, to be honest with you. I'll show her, but you don't go very long on anger.
Right.
You run out of fuel really quick, right? So I read these books like The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by, Dr. Joseph. And so I read these books, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to condition my mind, not with affirmations, I'm happy, but where I'm going to engage my body, my focus, my language over and over with such repetition. I'm going to condition my mind with every step I take. So I started doing every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day and every way I'm getting stronger. I'll be yelling it. I do that for like 5 minutes. And then I go every day, healthy and healthy, happier and happier. I did that all the way for 16 miles. And it was like 2 hours plus. I had shin sprints, of course. I wasn't prepared for this or anything else. But I found a part of myself that I use to this day. I found that part of myself that will not give up. That's where I shaped my identity that day. And I've used that energy anytime I faced a challenge ever since. And so I think people can train themselves to discover who they really are. But the best way to do that is do something you don't think is consistent with your identity. In other words, a belief is a poor substitute for an experience. You can tell me what China's like in your belief system, but if I take you to China, you're going to have an experience. Experience is more powerful. So I try to give people experiences in my events that violate their limitations. That's why I've done skydiving and firewalking and all that stuff too, is because when you do something you thought was difficult or impossible, your brain goes, well, what else can I do that I thought was so impossible? It's so easy. And I'm one of those now. I'm a person who does these things. That shift is the most important shift for anyone to go to the next level of their life.
Download the Hallow app today and get 3 free months at hallow.com/Delony.